Live from St. Vincent College in Latrobe, this is exclusive coverage of the 2018 Steelers training camp. Presented by Bud Light, famous among friends, and Spring Hill Suites Latrobe, where you can expect a legendary experience. And also brought to you by Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine and LECOM at Seton Hill. Window Nation. Visit us at windownation.com. And Excella Health. How can we help you today? Now, here's Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley.
Now, here we are.
Here we are.
Once again.
How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm terrific.
It's been about 4 hours since I saw you.
Right.
So we had a nice lunch together.
We did with Mr. Bouchette. That was lovely. Had a little Hall of Fame talk. That was fun.
That was enlightening as usual.
Uh-huh.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Back on the air. Live from Steelers training camp. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. We are winding down Steelers training camp 2018. We've got 3 days left here. The Steelers practice at 2:55 p.m. today. And, we're closing in on game number 2.
Yeah, closing in on it for sure. I mean, it feels like that midpoint almost where just about done talking about the first preseason game, start gearing up for the second one, midweek in a game week that's on Thursday to Thursday instead of Sunday to Sunday.
That throws my whole week off.
The whole Thursday
I
thing?
had no idea what day of the week this is.
I know.
It's
It's funny. I think I talked to you on my way up here, and it was Saturday, and you're like, "It's just another Monday. Don't worry about it." I'm like, "You're 2 days off, dude. You're 2 days off."
Yeah, it's just my days are all the same.
And it is Groundhog Day.
It is Groundhog Day. I am Bill Murray. Again, we've talked about this before. It's like I just wake up every day expecting to hear Sonny and Cher.
Right.
I got you, babe. Okay, here I am again.
Try to get the girl in the end. No, but it's been a blast. I mean, it looks like we had good weather for it today. Coach Tomlin has not had the awful heat that he probably wants. But that's all right.
I'll tell you what, though,
Fine with me.
today feels like it's going to be a little sticky down there because those fields are wet. They were soaking wet yesterday.
I bet they're really humid. I mean,
it's going to be really humid down on the field.
Yeah. All that stuff
you
coming off the field.
You could see some guys with some heat-related issues today.
Mm-hmm. What's the practice situation for all the big stars and all the injuries and whatnot?
Antonio Brown was back yesterday.
Yeah, I knew that was big.
That was
news
a big
for
one.
Sure.
So I'll be interesting to see what happens with Bud Dupree today. T.J. Watt was running yesterday, which is something new for him. They had him over in the other field, running laps around the other field. So
he's been out a while.
Yeah, I think he's getting close. That was a hamstring. The funny thing was, I'm watching practice yesterday. In between plays, Watt's on the sideline, and all of a sudden Antonio Brown walks over to him and starts showing him hamstring stretches and little things that he can do, like to work the hamstring a little bit.
Dr. Brown.
Yeah, Dr. Brown.
The DeLorean.
Just the little things that you get to see, on
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure AB has dealt with those things and, more than outside linebackers and as a cure for everything, and I'm sure he's tried everything in the sun.
He amazingly enough, doesn't get a lot of injuries. That's why the groin injury, everybody freaked out here when he has the quad injury. And everybody's like, Antonio Brown's missing practice, because that never happens. But he was back yesterday, full participant. I would not expect him to play on Thursday night. Mike Tomlin, in fact, said as much. He didn't say it outright, but he said we're going to monitor his.
Okay.
It's August. We're going to monitor his recovery. We're not going to do anything silly with him. He's not playing on Thursday
sounds
night.
Like it,
yeah.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see who does. If Antonio Brown doesn't play, does Ben Roethlisberger play?
That was actually my next question.
Yeah,
ask, how about the starting outside linebackers? You kind of mentioned that.
Yeah,
it's getting close to Thursday.
Now Bud Dupree was coming back from a concussion, and then he had the birth of a child. So he was
double whammy.
He had the double whammy, so he should be back.
Two headaches.
Yeah, I think he would be back today. I'll be surprised if he doesn't at least try to practice. He was out on the field last Tuesday. Those stages of recovery from the concussion. He was out jogging and doing those kind of things. So as you work your way through the concussion protocol, that's the physical exertion is like later into the process. So I would assume he'll be back out out there soon.
And of course, they're not going to rush either one. And
there's really no reason. Although they've
been out a while, though.
A couple of young guys that you'd like to see on the field, and they're a little thin at that position. I'm watching Joey Porter yesterday, and he's out there with his outside linebacker group, and there's 4 of them. You know?
Wow. Yeah, right. I guess that's about it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, they only brought 6 to camp, and 2 are hurt. And the last week in practice before the game, 3 of the guys are out. So he's 3 outside linebackers to work with, and that ain't a lot.
I would imagine 6 is a low number to start with.
Yeah, it's
out of 90 something. Right.
Not a lot. It tells me that they like the guys that they have.
Right. And I think they like all 6.
And they're all young. That's the other part of it. So you don't
Right.
want to take reps away from young guys who you think are going to be on your team.
Let's rep these guys up heavy, use them. And all 6 may even be in the equation.
They very well may. I would think that all 6 of them have a spot somewhere on this team.
Right. I mean, you're going to keep at least 4, maybe 5.
They've kept 5 in the past, and then have 1 on the practice squad.
Right.
So, but there's your 6.
There's your 6.
I mean,
and 4 and 2, I think, is a possibility too.
Yeah,
I don't think that would be crazy talk.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's one position that I think they feel pretty good about. I mean, there's no stars there. Watt could be a star.
Watt could be, but right. I mean,
it's not the star power that they've had though in the past at the outside
Kevin
line.
Green or Lloyd or right.
No, nothing like that. But
they led the league in sacks last year. And, they dropped these guys in coverage a lot more.
That was Joey Porter's point to me when I talked to him last week. He's like, we led the league in sacks last year. We set a team record in sacks last year. All anybody wants to talk about is, hey, the outside linebackers didn't get any sacks.
Right. I mean, there are 2 ways of looking at it. I mean, as I've said before, if they were elite pass rushers, if they were Von Miller, they wouldn't drop into coverage as much as they did. But you're generating a lot of pressure. Somebody has to drop into coverage. If you're blitzing Williams and Hilton, and obviously the defensive linemen are coming more.
You're not seeing the days of when they would drop a defensive lineman into coverage.
No.
You're not dropping Cam Hayward into coverage.
Those zone blocking or zone drop principles are starting to kind of fade away.
Yeah.
The quarterback finds them and throws at them.
Right.
Right. Yeah. You don't want Casey Hayward.
When they first started doing that, it was surprising. When you'd see Casey Hampton drop into a passing lane, it's like, hey, whoa!
And all of a sudden, somebody else is on you from the backside that you didn't know was coming. That was the element of surprise. But not that those tactics are gone, but in the end, you don't want Tuitt, Hayward, especially Hargrave, dropping into coverage for 3-4 seconds. Even if somebody runs right through your zone, you might not get a hand on them.
Right.
I think we were talking about missed tackles, and you brought up the idea of, well, Cam Hayward's chasing down Tariq Cohen in that game the best he possibly can, but believe it or not, he didn't catch him. He's 100 pounds heavier, a much bigger human being. So even if you play it right and you're a defensive lineman just in those short zones,
athletically,
you
were athletically at a huge disadvantage.
In space, no doubt.
Kind of like your boy Tyler Matakevich in all situations.
A little bit, yes. That's my boy all of a sudden.
He's your boy. You hate him. You hate Tyler Matakevich.
Yeah,
you hate him.
He's going to beat me up one night. coming in here late.
He is a nice young man.
Yeah, rooting for him.
Just
I think he'll make a whale of a coach someday.
We've said it over and over. I mean, he's physically limited with what he can bring in, and he knows that.
I mean, this is shocking news breaking here.
Yeah, this isn't surprising news to him. That's why he does the film study that he does and has to play the above the neck game because, when you're a little limited athletically, this is an athlete's league.
Oh, for sure, more than ever. And I mean, you better be an A+ read and recognition guy and tackler and all those things, and no one's really an A+. I mean, never fail in those.
Right.
And even so, I mean, there's times I'm sure that he reads it absolutely right and just can't get there.
Yeah.
Or you're guarding the target absolutely perfectly, but they pluck one over your head, or I mean, it's just the way the world is. We're not all meant for it.
Yeah. So, anyway, so the Steelers practice at 2:55 p.m. today. That will be their. They'll have 3 practices this week. They'll practice today, tomorrow, and Tuesday, and then they'll break camp. And you will be relieved to not have to hear from us
for a little while. But right, we'll be back.
Game
at
days,
point.
and we'll be back, and then we'll be back soon after that in terms of more SNR coverage, more than ever before. So hopefully you enjoyed that. We enjoyed bringing it to you, Matt. When you look at what we went into the game Thursday night in Philadelphia with Randy Fichtner being the guy in charge of the offense for the first time. Did we notice anything that looked different out there from what you typically saw from?
I didn't. I mean, it's one game, and I'm sure that they're just running plays. I know that's like,
right.
Well, don't they run plays every day? But they're not game planning. They're putting in plays that they practiced here in a generic fashion and run them against a different opponent than what's out here on the field. So it's hard to say. I certainly have my radar up for more play action, and I can't say I saw a ton of it.
Saw some.
Some. It's not like it doesn't exist. I do think there's some things. Well, let's talk about Haley for a minute.
Okay.
I mean, I think he's a good coordinator. I think one of the best things he did, in a way, was not being Bruce Arians, in that I think he extended Ben's career. Let's stop with the 7-step drops and 5-man protections, and let's get the ball out of your hands. Let's help you stay healthier and play longer. And I think Haley did an exceptional job of doing that. I think something that Haley's done throughout his career, I mean, with the Cardinals, and I think we'll see with the Browns, is I think he excels at getting the ball in his best player's hands. And that sounds real simple to everybody, too. Like, why don't hand it to Le'Veon Bell is not all that hard of a coordinating job.
Throwing the ball to Antonio Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
But the defense knows it's coming, too.
Right.
They game
you got to
plan
design
for
ways
you as well.
to get those guys open.
Yeah, those guys consistently get a lot of touches, a lot of big numbers, and obviously it works. Another thing he did very well that's a very efficient play call is throwing on 1st and 10. I mean, like the best offenses in the league this past year were like the Eagles, the Rams, the Saints, the Steelers. They were all high percentage throwing on 1st and 10. Why is that a big deal? Well, because you get very predictable coverages. You get very. You're
not seeing a bunch of defensive backs out there. You're not seeing
this linebacker's probably going to drop in the hook zone.
They're not dialing up a lot of blitzes.
Exactly. I mean, you're throwing against predictable coverages, and usually against heavier personnel is a really efficient way of moving the ball, especially when you're throwing to backs. And Bell caught a lot of early down passes. What I worry about is I don't understand why they don't use more play action, and maybe it's a Ben thing. And if that's the answer, then I'm fine with it because. Do whatever Ben likes to do. There's no doubt.
I keep seeing it from the other guys.
More so than when
Seven's behind center.
Right. Maybe he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
He probably will never admit it, but there is a reason because they're at the bottom of the league in play action percentage year after year. And maybe it's a Haley thing, maybe it's a Ben thing. I think this year will tell us that answer because really that's a gift. I mean, being able to do that in this league is a massive advantage that every team is using really, really well. And the efficiency numbers on play action across the league are skyrocketing. The other thing I noticed, I didn't notice, but I read it, was when Haley became a little bit predictable in that when the Steelers had 12 or 21 personnel on the field, they ran a much higher percentage than the league average. When they had 3 receivers or more on the field, they threw a much higher percentage than the average. And again, it worked, but being unpredictable is a great advantage of being a play caller, and I don't think he was all that much, and the numbers show it. And I also don't think, and this is probably where the people were most obvious with it, is I thought he got too cute in 3rd and shorts, near the goal line, those type of things. Just bring Nix in the game and doesn't have to be pretty. Just end it in there. Yeah, end up in the end zone.
I want to talk more about that when we come back in the next segment. I want to talk about the ability or the edge it may give a team to have a guy who hasn't been a coordinator before in the league.
Okay.
Because there's no book on him.
Right.
And so that's what the Steelers have this year with Randy Fichtner. It will take opponents probably at least a quarter of the season and maybe
a month
half.
Or two.
Maybe half to try to get into some kind of figure out what his rhythm is, what he likes to call in certain situations. And the Steelers can possibly use that to their advantage this season.
Yeah.
So we will talk about that when we come back. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to live coverage from Steelers training camp here at St. Vincent College. We're going to be here until 3 o'clock today, so don't you go anywhere. We're going to talk more about the offense coordinator position when we come back after this.
Live from St. Vincent College in Latrobe, this is exclusive coverage of the 2018 Steelers training camp on Steelers Nation Radio. Now, here's Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley.
Matt, I said in the tease that we would talk a little bit more about the offensive coordinator position for the Steelers and the fact that you have Randy Fichtner coming in this year. There's no book on Randy Fichtner. There's no... you were talking about Todd Haley became predictable last year. There's going to be no way for teams to predict
Sure.
try to. I mean, you can
tendencies.
You can predict. Okay, they're going to throw the ball to Antonio Brown.
Yeah, we're going to double AB.
Yeah.
But
it's funny. Yesterday, during practice, of course, Antonio Brown's back out there, and they go into the 11-on-11 stuff, and he comes back to the huddle at one point, and he's looking over Keith Butler. He goes, "Come on, Coach. Can't double me already out here."
It's just got back. Give me a break.
And Butler's like, "Hey, you're on the field. We got to double you. That's just the way it is."
Get used to it, as if he's not already. Of course,
he's usually being tripled actually. So, there's no book on him.
Right, and they are books on coordinators. Like I mentioned that Haley thing, and being predictable based on personnel groupings. Well, there's lower level coaches that dig through that information all day.
Yeah, all these teams have guys who work on statistics and do
quality control guys as well as analytic guys that all combine their findings to say, boy, I mean, in base personnel they run an awful lot.
Or it's 3rd and 2 and they like to run this play a lot.
Right, this is their favorite play. These are their go-tos. It's much like a pitcher. I'm sure that, hey, when he's down in the count, you're going to see fastballs or those type of things. I mean, people have tendencies. And now with the help of computers and all these coaches, you can find them out much easier. And I think you're very right. I hadn't thought of that angle from Fichtner. Is he's a blank slate right now.
Yeah.
He ran
completely blank. I mean, you can't even like if you went back and looked at his college stuff, he's running the spread.
And that was a long time ago at Memphis. It wasn't even USC or Bama.
Right. There's nothing to find.
Right. And a lot of those guys ran spread there because they couldn't recruit offensive linemen. If you're at a school like that. You get the ball out super fast. The linemen are at a premium, as they are at the NFL, but even more so there. So let's play fast. We can always recruit a bunch of receivers. They might not be Jerry Rice, but I can get a lot of guys that are fast.
Guys,
right. There's a lot of them in the world. Just think about it. There's a lot more 5'11", 180-pound human beings than there are 6'6", 310, that are athletes.
Yeah, he told me he tried to recruit Ramon Foster.
Oh, really?
Because he's in Tennessee.
Yeah, right.
And Ramon said, "No, I'm going to Tennessee."
Sure, right.
That's what you're fighting.
That's what happens.
You're Memphis,
right. So you play a lot of spread. So maybe that's not even the way he wants to play football. It was the way he had to play football.
Right.
Right. So we don't even know for sure. He doesn't even have a long history or 12-year coordinating or, like I said, I wasn't like talking down on Memphis. But when you're at a big school, you have your choice of athletes. We don't want that type of corner. We want this type of corner because they both want to come here.
That's what surprised me. Like when Rich Rodriguez went to Michigan.
Mm-hmm. That was
he's trying. We got to run my offense. Well, you didn't have any of the guys that you needed to run your quote unquote offense. You got a bunch of guys to play power football.
Right.
You're in Michigan.
You have a gift now. You can get linemen. He invented all that stuff for the same reason I mentioned because. We were at Pitt, we could not get premium offensive linemen. Orlando Pace isn't going to West Virginia or Pitt. He's going to one of the top 10 schools in the world, and there's 3 of them in every recruiting class. There's none, including defensive tackles who turn into offensive tackles. And so when you go to Michigan and you can recruit linemen and you can actually blow people off the ball without being fancy, do it.
Yeah,
right. When you play Indiana, you don't need to get crazy. Your guys
you don't need to be running this spread. You've got so it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes teams to get a book on Randy Fichtner. Is that 4 games? Is it half a season? Is it
a whole
season?
year? Right.
Yeah.
I mean that's another thing about football. Unlike baseball, even one season isn't the real big sample size.
Right.
It's only 16 games and. Like you're talking about, the first month of the season, I'm sure they're going to game plan against the Browns differently than they will in week 2, week 3, week 4. So maybe they're just specific, game plans for that week for that opponent. That's, again, not what he really wants to do.
Right. I mean, it's just, so it's going to take some time. It's much similar to the way when Keith Butler came in, we didn't know what to expect out of that because.
True.
Again, you're not changing the defense.
They're not reinventing the wheel.
They're not changing everything that they do, but it's been a subtle change. It's been a gradual change with Keith Butler to as we've seen, more pass rush from the defensive line, more dropping in the coverage from the outside linebackers.
Right, that was not a LeBeau thing.
That was not a LeBeau thing. You want your cornerbacks to be guys who are. They don't need to be these big guys who just tackle the catch.
Right.
You want guys who can play man coverage more often.
They're certainly leaning towards more and more man coverage.
Yeah.
I mean, at least they're adding personnel with that in mind.
Yeah, so yes, they're still playing a 3-4 defense, but it's a way different 3-4 defense.
And they're much more attacking and
Yeah.
slanting and stunts and gap replacement stuff. And that's the way the league's going. That's not like LeBeau wouldn't do it, but it's not what was happening when he was here. And again,
and he did do some of that in Tennessee when he was there.
Yeah, right.
He started
more
shifting to more of a man.
He's a smart man too. He realizes what works and what doesn't. But yeah, you're 100% right. I think that is an advantage for them, especially early in the year. Particularly against division teams. You kind of know what the Ravens want to do. You kind of know what Marvin Lewis wants to do. You play these teams, you really start to learn tendencies. And yeah, they've added new players and they've gone through their share of coordinators as well. But I do think that will work to the Steelers' advantage. It's a good point.
And the interesting thing is, for the opener, and we're going to talk a ton about the opener before it happens.
Sure.
But you got Todd Haley. He knows their defense as well as anybody. Todd Haley was, for the last 6-7 years practicing against the Steelers' defense.
Right.
He knows their personnel. He knows the tendencies. He knows all that stuff. So that's going to be part of the chess match in that first game. And I'm sure that Randy Fichtner, the Steelers know what Todd Haley likes to do.
Yeah, Randy worked with Todd.
Yeah, they know. Yeah,
right.
I'm sure they talked about, at times different things when hey, let's try this in practice today because we know that so and so doesn't do this well, or so there's all kinds of. It's going to be an interesting chess match that first week of the season.
I think it probably favors the Browns more than the other way around.
I would think so as well.
And because Haley not only knows what the defense wants to do and attacked it in practice so many times, but if Antonio Brown has a slight weakness, he's going to go tell the Browns defensive back coach, or Ramon Foster doesn't like swim moves, or whatever.
All
it
that
is,
stuff,
right? And so he'll have the grit on all his former players too, and they'll know Haley, but he's playing with a different deck of cards now.
Right,
it's the Njoku and Taylor and these guys that are different. That a lot of them weren't even Browns last year, let alone Haley coach Browns. And you wonder, does Butler then go out of his way to break tendencies that he would have done? Maybe they're a heavy blitz team on 3rd and long, but we're not going to do that against Todd because he thinks it's coming. Like I know that you know that you know. And, now we are going to do it.
It's like the Sicilians sitting at the table in The Princess Bride, and they're going through all the scenarios of which glass has the poison in it.
Right. I know that you know that you know that I know, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but with the Steelers and Randy Fichtner, just a complete blank slate.
Right.
And so the Steelers need to use that to their advantage as much as possible, especially early in the season before there is a book on Randy Fichtner.
I mean, I do think the thing, and this has been talked about a fair amount, is I think something we can expect, though, is more no huddle, more controlling tempo. That doesn't even mean you're playing faster, but I think it'll be less huddling, more
less
on
time
Ben's.
In the huddle. I think it's more. Yeah, they want Ben more at the line of scrimmage, surveying things and taking a look at what's there.
And Ben's really good at that, and he can also change the play. He could probably call his own plays in a stint to, hey, Ben, let's go fast. You just call them all from here. Go, go, go.
And, by the way, Ben's going to have a little extra juice for that game as well.
I would think he might, yes. He usually does pretty well in Ohio to begin with, but, yeah, I would think he might. And the other thing you're really seeing around the league, and like the Rams did it with Goff heavily, and it's more of a young quarterback thing, is don't spend any time in the huddle. Get your butt up to the line of scrimmage so we can talk in the headset for as long as possible. Hey, it looks like that safety's coming. This looks like cover 2. Boom, then you're out. Okay, snap the ball. Get the coach's input as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, because that headphone the headset stays on until 15 seconds before the snap.
Right.
So take advantage of it.
So if you're sitting in the huddle for the first 10 seconds of the play clock, you're not gaining anything from them. I can see it. I don't think it's far-fetched to say 5-10 years from now, people will be like, why did they ever huddle? That looks so dumb. Everyone just sits there and clap. Okay, break. There we go.
It's the difficult thing about it is it's difficult to do on the road when you're,
hear everything. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you're right.
And, if you're in Indianapolis in the Dome and they're pumping sound in back in the day.
Right.
I couldn't hear the guy sitting next to me in the press box.
Yeah.
In the press box.
That's a good point. Right.
It's very loud on the field. Everything's aimed at that. So it is difficult to make a lot of crazy, changes in the plays at the line of scrimmage because you've got not only the offensive lineman, and you'll see Ben in those kind of situations going to each lineman to tell him the
Yeah,
call.
right, right.
But then you got to get it out to the receivers on
Right,
the outside, and that's the tough part.
Yeah, you don't have a megaphone, you know.
So it's hand signals, it's
Hand
those,
signals,
those
right.
kind of things.
And some of them wear the band.
And
the
I'm sure
wristband,
the Steelers are having to change all that stuff because, again, you've got Haley in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's like in baseball, if they know your signals, you know, like when he goes to the nose, the next one's that's the indicator, you know. Like,
yeah, right.
You can't do those things, and that will be interesting. I mean, there's no doubt. Another thing I was going with there, kind of lost my train of thought. What was I thinking about? I mean, I would imagine that Haley knows some Ben idiosyncrasies too. You know, that he's gonna. What does Ben really dislike doing? You know, what are you gonna do on defense? You know, what are you gonna do to make his life as difficult as possible? And obviously, you're gonna try to do that. And of course, Ben's gonna know it's coming too. Like,
right. I mean, I'm sure they talked for a year. You know, when you're with somebody that long, you talk about. Well, I don't like it when teams do this to me. I don't like it when they do that. I do like it when they line up in this kind of defense. These are the kind of things that I want to see. So I'm sure those things are all going to be talked about in that they've probably talked about them the entire offseason to come up with a plan because that's the one that you game plan for the most. I mean, teams talk about the entire season, but they really do focus on that first game. You want to get out of the gate fast. And you have
a longer time to prepare for it.
And
I mean, it's crossing their minds now, probably.
I don't think the Browns have won a season opener since they came back into the league.
Wow. That's a long time now.
Yeah,
that's
from 1999.
Right.
Joe Hayden had never won a season opener before joining the Steelers.
Wow. That's unbelievable to me. That's an amazing run. Wow.
I mean, they just don't win on the opener. So I'm sure they want to change that and change the culture. You had a team that didn't win a game last year that
I'm sure they're looking at it like it's their Super Bowl.
Yeah, this is it. This is it, guys. We want to show that we're a different team. So
you're going to get their A game.
You are definitely going to get their A game. Right. I thought the Steelers kind of got that last year. They got a lot more than they could handle. It was a close football game.
Right.
If the Steelers don't block the punt on the opening series and recover for a touchdown, who knows how that game works out? But
and the Browns were in a lot of those last year.
Yeah.
You're a big basketball fan and you played, but it always reminds me of like when the Duke Haynes of the world play against North Carolina and hang with them for like a half or three quarters.
Because that's your NCAA championship.
And eventually, it's like you just run out.
Yeah,
like
the
they
talent,
have too many guys.
The talent finally takes over.
Right. They bring another wave off the bench, and your guys are so beat, and just to keep up. And then, I mean, that happened to the Browns a lot last year. They were very competitive through a large portion of their games, and even something to overtime. And then we just don't have as many horses as you got.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, you are listening to the freeform jazz version once again of Steelers Nation Radio, as Matt and I are just going on trains of thoughts wherever we go, and just having some like this. This is what we would do. Okay,
note.
Go ahead.
I bet there was many times over the last couple of years that Haley and Ben are watching last week's game tape, and Haley goes to him, "Dude, you fell for the backside corner crash blitz again." You know, like. You know, then the Browns are going to bring the backside corner crash. You know, right? You fall for that every time, Ben. Come on, you know.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. I'm sure the Steelers are looking at their tendencies. I'm sure Roethlisberger's looking at things that he likes to do and saying, well, but, I don't know if I want to do that against Todd.
Yeah.
Because he knows that I like to do that against that. He knows that I know that you know that.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see, but we'll have plenty of time to continue talking about that game in the weeks leading up to it on September 9th, I believe that is the opener.
That when it starts?
I believe so. So we get some time.
A little less than a month.
It doesn't feel like it.
No, it seems like that should be coming soon.
Yeah, it feels like it should be right around the corner, and yet we got another
3
month.
preseasons.
Yeah, 3 more preseason games starting Thursday night again in Green Bay, and then the Steelers will have their final 2 preseason games at home. So looking forward to that. Where I don't have to go somewhere else to cover a game. But he is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You are listening to Steelers Nation Radio, live from Steelers Training Camp here at St. Vincent College. We're going to take a little break, and we'll be back in just a second.
Live from St. Vincent College in Latrobe, this is exclusive coverage of the 2018 Steelers Training Camp on Steelers Nation Radio. Now, here's Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley.
Matt, we just met a fan of the show, I might add, from New Jersey.
Yeah, I hope he's listening. He says he listens constantly to SNR on the Loop, so maybe he will hear this. He stopped by, shook a few hands, took a few pictures, offered him Wolf's extra donut here. He didn't take it.
Took a picture of it, though.
So he comes to camp, he said, every other year, and he was very cool. So
yeah,
that was nice.
Very nice to
nice
nice of him to stop by.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that, and that's one of the great things about doing Steelers Nation Radio. We last week I had a gentleman from South Carolina.
Right.
Stop by and say
At
he listens
Sharkies.
all the time,
Yeah.
and saw him again later that night at Sharkies, and talked to a gentleman from Indianapolis who listens, and we're worldwide, man.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, and I don't know the business side of it, yeah, there's a ton of Pittsburgh listeners to what we're doing here, but it's an amazing amount non-Pittsburgh listeners. This is, you don't hear the Steeler radio when you're in Indianapolis.
The Steelers really are. I mean, they're a nationwide, worldwide team. I mean, they're not just the Pittsburgh area. So many teams, there's no Jacksonville Nation radio. They're Jaguars Nation radio. It doesn't exist because there's no
Nobody
nation.
listens to it.
Yeah,
right.
it's just not. It's not there. But this team has such a history and such a following that makes this possible, and we appreciate that.
You've been to all the different cities much more than I have, and really, I've only been out of this city for almost 2 years of my life when I was at Akron and with the Browns. So, is it really true that just about every big city has a Steeler bar?
It's not pretty much true. It's
dead.
It's everywhere. Yeah, there's every. You can look them up. I mean, there are places, there are websites that tell you exactly where every Steelers bar is at in every city, and every city has one, if not more than one.
Okay.
I mean, it's just that's just the way it is. And
okay, question number 2.
Yeah, okay.
Does Pittsburgh have Cowboy, Raiders, Giants bars?
I would.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
I've never known anyone who goes there. I bet they don't do real well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
This must be a phenomenon with other teams. I mean, we're not that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Packers bar in a lot of different places,
right?
Or, those kind of things.
Does Pittsburgh have a Packers bar? I mean, I've been to a lot of bars in Pittsburgh, and I've never seen it.
Never seen a lot of Green Bay stuff with a big G
right.
on the wall.
Aaron Rodgers, fathead.
That was the cool thing about the Super Bowl in 2010, though. I mean, you had two storied franchises that and the fans from both sides were very respectful of each other, of the other team's history.
They weren't nasty.
Yeah.
There was a mutual respect.
Yeah, I mean, I did a pregame show from an establishment right across the street from the stadium. It was Joe Bendel and myself at the time, and we're doing our predictions and those kind of things, and I think I predicted a narrow Steeler victory of like 27-23, so something along those lines.
Yeah.
And some of the Packers fans were like, "Hey, who are you picking?" We're talking to them, and I said why I was picking the Steelers in that situation. He goes, "Yeah, I could see that." They didn't get mad about it or anything like that. They just, I could see that happening. You guys have a good team, we have a good team. It was just, I mean, there was so much respect there. It was kind of scary, actually.
They were nice to each other.
Yeah, they were nice. You're at the pregame show for the Super Bowl between the Packers and Steelers. There's Packers and Steelers fans all throughout this bar mingling and drinking, some beverages together and just having a good time.
They're not fighting or
there was none of that.
breaking up battles.
None of that. But if it had been like a Steelers-Cowboys game or something like that, then it's a little nastier.
Yeah, I would think just about any other matchup. I mean, most Super Bowls, I bet you get a little bit of nasty.
Yeah, the Seahawks fans were, when the Steelers played the Seahawks or the Steelers played the Cardinals, I mean, they're we're going to beat your butt. There was none of that.
None of that.
None of that. It was just like, we're going to enjoy a good game, and somebody's team's going to win another Super Bowl, and
they're just as passionate about their team.
Oh,
if
yeah,
not more,
but
they're just a little more smart about it. We don't need to fight though about
a football game,
right? That none of the players even know who we are,
right?
Right? Like it's kind of a one-way street on the love.
And I just think there's Green Bay. I've been to Green Bay several times. It's kind of like a mini Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
It really. I mean, it's got that feel to it. Yeah, it's built on the packing industry, obviously, and it's right on the lake, and so it's kind of interesting in that respect.
It's obviously an amazing football town.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the number one thing in their city. Right?
They have nothing else.
Nothing else.
Not nothing else. I mean, it's a nice. It's a nice area. It's in the summertime.
In the summertime, it's not. I mean,
for about that 1 month
January,
of the summer, January would not want to be
without
there.
it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is cool. I mean, and again, I bet there are probably Packer bars and stuff across the country.
Probably, yeah. I mean, and probably there may be one in Pittsburgh somewhere.
There must be.
If somebody knows, let us know what it is. We don't know.
Yeah, we'll let you buy some beer there.
You can tweet us at.
There probably is, but I doubt there's 32 of them in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like I doubt there's a Jag bar and a Colt bar, and right.
That's what kind of stunk last year. When you start thinking about, and I asked Ben Roethlisberger about this at the time, because you didn't know what the preseason schedule is, but you know that we know what the regular schedule is for those crossover games of the AFC NFC.
Oh, right.
So the Steelers they host the Packers last year, and Aaron Rodgers can't play. He's hurt for that game. And I'm just like,
not everyone was mourning
that was
loss,
that was probably your last opportunity as a Steeler fan to see Aaron Rodgers and Ben Roethlisberger match up in a game.
Unless they meet in the Super Bowl.
Otherwise,
it's going to be 4 years from now.
Yeah.
And we know that.
And we know that one will be in Green Bay. The next one will be in Green Bay because this one was in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So,
and the chance of both those guys being there in
there's
4
no
years.
chance they're both going to be there in 8 years to have it back in Pittsburgh.
Right.
There's a chance that they're both playing in 4 years in Green Bay.
And unlike a lot of players in the league, they're not going to be on a different team.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so that was that's one of those matchups that you don't get to see a lot. That you kind of wanted to see.
Right. I mean, 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Right.
Played simultaneously for many, many years.
Met in the Super Bowl, and
how many matchups did Rodgers and Roethlisberger have in their career? 2, maybe. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. I mean,
yeah, because the last time the Steelers played out there, Rodgers was hurt.
Which is amazing because he's hardly missed time.
Yeah, he's hardly missed any time. But the last 2 times that they played the Packers, they've missed Aaron Rodgers.
So maybe they've only played in the Super Bowl together.
Well, they played the game at Heinz Field in 2009, I believe it was.
Okay.
That was the Mike Wallace catch on the
8 years ago.
Yeah, the Mike Wallace catch on the in the corner of the end zone as time expired. If you remember that, that was a classic game.
Yeah, right. I do now. Right. My memory of games is much worse.
So they've had a couple pretty substantial matchups in their careers. They've split them. And, of course, Rodgers got the Super Bowl win. But, because he missed the game last year, we may never get to see that again.
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to think, like, who are some other NFC quarterbacks? Like, how many times did Romo and Roethlisberger meet? Or Eli and Roethlisberger meet? I mean, they've
done it a few times.
Right.
But not
Eli never missed a game.
Yeah, not a ton, though. I mean,
right.
and those have been, Ben beat Eli his rookie year, if memory serves. And then Eli came back here in 2008 that season. That was the game James Harrison snapped the ball. He was the emergency long snapper and snapped the ball over the Santonio Holmes was suspended for that game or sat down because he had the incident on Friday of that week. And the Steelers, of course, go on to win the Super Bowl.
But with only 16 games, it's real easy. How many times did Brady and Rodgers meet? Maybe twice.
Yeah, it just doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
Not as often as you'd like when the guys are in different conferences.
Sure.
Of course, you get to see the Brady Roethlisberger matchup. You get to see Roethlisberger and Manning, a decent amount of times. Brady and Manning a ton, because they would always finish first in their division.
Probably twice a year, even though they weren't in the division together.
Yeah, those AFC quarterback matchups, you just don't get to see a lot of it.
No, and I guess you could look at it through a half-full lens, too, is when you get 2 or 3 really good quarterbacks in the same division. Like, we haven't really had that in the AFC North. But you look at, like, the NFC South, you get Cam Ryan twice a year. You get Breeze Ryan twice a year. It could be pretty fun if if Mariota turns into a stud and him and Luck battle it out twice a year. Watson. That if you get a couple really good quarterbacks in the same division, it could be for fireworks.
Yeah, and the Steelers have not had that. And I know a lot of people look at last year.
There's some young guys in this division now.
There are.
Maybe Mayfield-Jackson goes down as the best rivalry ever. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's the great thing about the game. But I enjoy the matchups. I like those kind of things because I'm a fan of the game.
Right.
I want to see the best guys out there playing, and sometimes you don't get to see that because of injuries. And really missed that Rodgers-Roethlisberger matchup last year, and I don't know if we're going to get to see it Thursday.
Right. I bet Keith Butler wasn't crying in his
No.
weeklies.
I'm sure. I'm positive
Mike Mitchell
of that. Yeah.
Right. But, yeah, I mean, for the love of the game, you want to see the best guys.
Right.
For sure.
Right. So the Steelers play at Green Bay on Thursday. We'll see. We'll find out Tuesday what Mike Tomlin's plan is for this game, whether he plans to play Ben Roethlisberger a series or two.
If you were to put a buck on it, you think he will play, though, right? Are you giving it about 50-50 odds?
Maybe he plays a series, and then they get him out of there.
Because he won't play Week 4.
No, he's not going to play Week 4, and in Week 3, they'll give him a quarter, maybe
at most.
At most,
right.
Yeah, and a lot of that'll be handing off and just allowing him to get into a little bit of a rhythm. You're not going to let him. It's not like he needs a ton of practice time or a ton of preseason games to get ready. I mean, he knows what the speed of the game is and all that stuff. But you do want to get him something.
You'd like to get him 4 or 5 series in the preseason.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. I mean,
so that therefore Week 2 needs to come into play.
Yeah, so
probably.
I think you maybe see Roethlisberger a little bit this week. cup of coffee and out of there.
Yeah. I know one thing that the coaches kind of fear, but obviously they have the say in it, though, is Ben comes in, 3 and out, and then, Coach, I don't play again. I mean, I didn't even get to throw a pass. Or, I threw one incompletion, or we blew a block, I get sacked. Let me go back out again. Like, oh, all right. But that's not the play. We got a plan in place here.
Well, that was the plan, for last Thursday's game with Landry Jones. They wanted to get him a series if it went well.
Mm-hmm.
But when it didn't, they needed to get him a second series because they didn't.
Right.
3 and out does him no good. You had to get him that second series.
Mm-hmm.
They went 3 and out again.
Watching you get sacked really
didn't
tell us
that
much,
doesn't. You get blitzed to the bejesus on.
Right. Fletcher Cox makes a great play, and it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So they left him out there for the third series, and that one was a short one as well because he hits the 71-yard bomb to Juju Smith-Schuster.
So all these great plans going into the game. This is how much they obviously change as the game goes on, and again, that brings me back to like the Bell situation. Like, it's real easy for us to sit here and talk about they need to save up Bell, and I used to be very critical of Tomlin years ago about overusing his running backs. But it's easy for me sitting here to say that as opposed to when it's a 3-point game in Cincinnati, Week 11.
Yeah,
like we got to win this game. That's what we're here to do.
That means getting him the ball 35 times.
I'm going to keep getting it to him. It's working. It's the best. Ben's having an off day or whatever. It's not like it's easy to sit in the booth, and it's just kind of the disconnect between coaches and front office people that, hey, the smart moves get him in here, but we got to win.
Right. It's a bottom line game. There are
right.
only 16 of these things, and
right.
if you give one away because we got to rest Bell, that doesn't do you any good.
Yeah, right. And that's how coaches think.
It's interesting. I had a talk yesterday with Stephen Ridley after practice. And he's a guy that I think this is his 7th or 8th season.
You say he's 29, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's been with 7 different teams.
That's amazing. Some of them must have been super short.
They were really short. This is a guy who had a 1,300-yard season for the Patriots.
Yeah.
So
he had a handful of good years with
them.
He was their starting back.
Yeah, there's some talent there, and yet he's bounced around the league a little bit since then. Injuries. He had a torn ACL the one year, and he says, you get that asterisk beside your name, injured. The injury asterisk and
the red dot next year.
And he says he was very happy to come back with the Steelers this year. He said they gave me an opportunity last year. I wasn't sure how much I was going to play when I came in. Mike Tomlin throws me out there in the finale against the Browns, and I get 20 carries. And
you got a lot of work.
Got a chance to show that he still had something left, and so he appreciated that. And he said, when it came time at the end of the season, because he only had the 1-year contract.
He probably had no idea am I going to be back or not.
He said I
I
expressed an interest in coming back. He said I appreciated what they did for me, and I want him to come back and try this again because I'm 29 years old, but I haven't gotten many carries the last few years. It's been
not a ton of wear and tear.
Yeah,
lately.
there's not been the wear and tear on his body. So he says you can look at the number, it's 29, but really. He's
played like 4 years, 5 years.
It's not it's not the beating that you. That running back position is really interesting in that respect.
It is. There's some quality options. I was a lot more worried about other than Bell running backs a month ago.
And people talk about Le'Veon Bell at 26 like he's 30 or 35.
Right.
He's over the hill.
Although his running back years are different than Ridley's running back.
Well,
years.
they are. They are.
Right.
But Ridley also said, it goes down to or comes down to. How do you take care of your body?
All right.
And, what kind of shape do you stay in? Well, Bell's in tremendous shape. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not one of these, guys who lets himself get out of shape even in the off season.
Right.
He stays in shape year round.
Right.
He, eats well and does all those things. And so, that makes a difference as well.
No doubt. I mean, I think it's very obvious and very true that keeping your body in peak performance and really doing the work is a great injury preventative measure. But that doesn't mean Darius Geis, can't handle a workload.
Well, yeah,
now.
I mean,
there's always
those
flukes,
things. Those things, the torn ACLs or sprained ligaments, those kind of things, those happen.
Or like broken bones, like David Johnson broke his wrist.
There's nothing
year.
you can
He
do
got
about
a helmet
those.
on the wrist.
It's
broke,
the hamstring injuries, it's the groin injuries, those
the
kind of things.
Stuff.
Yeah, and he hasn't had a ton of those soft tissue injuries. He had the one groin injury at the end of a run where he was, averaging 30-plus touches per game. I mean, he had heavy usage. Leading up to that groin injury. Heavy usage.
Yeah. I mean,
it was like a historic level.
Yeah,
right. So, I think maybe they learned a little something. Because you want to – okay, he's handling it. He's been great. You can't not give him the
They
ball.
were winning.
Yeah, those 2 games that he had, people were like, well, he's never done anything in the playoffs. Oh, yeah? Because he set the team record in back-to-back weeks rushing.
That's when I think he was clearly the best back in the league.
Yeah.
And at the height of his powers, I thought he was unbelievable. One more Ridley note before we go to break. I think it is noteworthy with him because in his heyday, when you were saying he had the big years with the Patriots, they were a two-headed attack. I mean, Vereen was the passing down back. They always have a heavy guy. They always have a pass catcher. And he was the heavy guy. He catches the ball pretty well here, though.
Yeah, I was surprised with that. He looked very good catching the football. And, I even asked him a little bit, hey, if they asked you to play any special teams, he says, I haven't really played special teams since my freshman year in college. He said, but I'm an athlete. I can do it. If I get the right coaching, I'll do it.
That's the one worry I have about him making the team.
He said that they have started to ask him to do some special team stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a 29-year-old running back. You don't typically see that.
Right.
A
I think
guy
that's one of the things hurting him, though.
Who has been a 1,300-yard back.
Right.
He was not asked to play special teams a lot.
And I've said this before. If the Steelers let him go, I could come up with 5 teams that could use him as their number 2 immediately. Give him carries every week.
Yeah. How about Detroit?
Right. I mean, him and Kerry.
They haven't had a 1,000-yard back since 2013.
Right.
They haven't had a back rush for 100 yards in a game since 2013.
That's amazing.
That to me is the most amazing statistic in all of football.
Yeah, they're the worst rushing team in the league year after year.
Historically.
Yeah.
Anyways, he is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley, and we're going to go to a break. When we come back, let's talk. What do you want to talk about, Matt? Let's talk a little bit about.
We'll come up with something.
We're going to talk about Pitt Johnstown.
Okay.
Something we both have in common. So, you might not want to go anywhere. We're going to give some little stories here from our days back in college. We didn't know each other, but
I don't think we overlapped. We might have.
I did some stuff that I was on campus at times when you were on. Because I
showed up in '92. Well, we'll get into this.
Okay, we'll get into all this when we come back. He is Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to Steelers Nation Radio.